Everybody, what's up? So I'm working on some other videos, and I got into reading two graphic novels, Persepolis 1 and 2. And the first one is the story of a childhood. The second was the story of a return. I haven't looked up the movie. I'm not sure if I'd want to watch it or not. Basically, the author, Marjane, I'm probably butchering those. She actually was born in '69 and grew up in Iran, and left when she was a teenager because part of the problem was when the new regime took over, a lot of the way people lived, how outspoken they can be, changed. And because of how she is, her parents said, oh, okay, we're going to send you to this French school in Austria. So she goes to Austria, and that's where the story of her return comes from. I just want to let you know that's where it comes from. She basically talks about how when there was a regime takeover, how people were treated. She said when the war in Iran started, there were constant bombings, everything happens. So many people that she knew, like young boys, were taken out of school to go to war, and she lost a lot of friends because their houses were bombed. And one of the things they talk about is this golden key, which is like this plastic key painted gold. And it was young boys were told when you get to a certain age, that's the key to heaven, that you basically were be able to enter in after you served your country if something happened to you. And a lot of it is sad how she had all these freedoms. There was not really this thing about wearing a veil and makeup did this completely different change. And there's nothing really discussed about religion for the most part. Basically, how like the regimes changed and how the laws went with everything. She talked about one point about like men and women could be seen together unless they were engaged or family. Even like finding a place. She also talks about her experiences living abroad and how there's so much of a cultural shock. And I didn't know this was a banned book until I actually kind of started looking at it because there is profanity. And one of the things she talks about is stories she's told about how people, whether family or their friends, were tortured. Not pretty stuff. I'm going to admit to it, it's stuff I've never even heard of before. But the people telling the story, it's just like it became so normal to them, they still had issues with it. But you really see how it impacted their lives even more. And it's such a different viewpoint from what we have in America versus what we see how people lived during that time frame. Talking about how people were martyrs and people protesting and getting attacked because of it. She said at one point, there's a group that if they caught you saying certain things, or being against the saying or wearing something against rules, you were detained. Your family would normally come and pay a fine. There is talk about dowry, but it's kind of a sensitive topic, so I really don't want to talk about it. You have to read the books to find out. She has a few other ones talking about her life in the city, and how like when she goes back, all this stuff is about martyrs and seeing how everything needs to be rebuilt. It is pretty sad. Like I said, it's a different perspective. It's kind of perspective you really don't think about because you see a country, that's having all these issues, and everyone's trying to go about their life. It it also talks about her views on religion, how she felt like she had a relationship with God and how that changed. Also about how her viewpoints were part of a lot of people's views on society. Not only that, but what she read and what her parents allowed her to read. Her parents really knew that she was extremely outspoken. Even her time abroad, she was living in a place that was like the rooms were rented out by nuns, and she offended them. They were just cruel. And you see people talking about people from her country and their stereotypical views and how she couldn't believe it. talks about her marriage. There's a lot of stuff, it's like you hear about this, and if you look at the YouTube channel uh, extra credits you haven't read, that's how I found out about this. And some of this stuff is discussed on that channel, so a lot of it is not, oh, here's a spoiler, whatever, it's not that way. But it really gets you thinking, and it is something I really encourage. I might in the future look up the movie, I'm not sure, because when you look at it, it's just so many parts of it are tearjerkers. I am looking at getting the next book, one of the other books, because it talks about her mother and how her friends talk, and even her parents, like I said, were radical in their own viewpoints. It's hard to describe it, at times, and how women are treated versus the men. Like I said, we hear this stuff. Some of it is stereotypical that she talks about, but worth it. Like I said. So if you've not heard of it, check it out. Unfortunately, I don't think there are any audiobooks of it, mainly because of the fact that so much of it is so visual that it really does paint a bigger picture than what we see. That's it, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.